I am such a creature of habit, and I love habits so much because habits take the thinking out of things. I mean, habits are the template of the mind, right? Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative or soul-centered entrepreneur or wellness practitioner who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, beautiful. I am recording this right around the solstice, and happy first days of summer. I was born on the winter solstice, and I always feel a connection. I feel like the seasons, the changing of the seasons kind of calls to me. So if that's your world, and I hope it is, at least on some level, because, you know, all that sunlight, how wonderful. Of course, I was born on the darkest day of the year, and I like to think it got better from there. Anyway, but happy solstice. That's my point. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about focus, some things I've been working on to get better focus. If I haven't told you 10,000 times, I'm writing a book, and focus is being called on right now. I also want to just talk to you a little bit about some tax policy research I've been doing and solicit your questions about it, because I really want to know what you want to know as I head into interviewing one of the nation's top tax policy advisors. He has advised multiple presidential administrations and is at the Brookings Institution. So I want to tell you a little nugget that I learned this week and ask you to tell me what is on your mind so I can cue that up as I go into this interview next week. Very first, I also just want to mention that, you know, if you don't have enough tax podcasts in your life, I just was a guest on the Stacking Benjamins podcast this week. That is a great show. They go deep into, you know, like saving strategy. It's not necessarily only for self-employed people, but it was a really fun interview. I had a great time. It was we were joking around a lot. It's very entertaining. So, and I talked about something I think is really important and I want you all to know about, which is doing some tax planning now at the halfway point in the year, because it is a time where you uniquely have a lot of power to make some changes to really save yourself some money for the rest of the year. So take a listen to the Stacking Benjamins podcast. I will put a link in the show notes so you can take a listen. And always, I love to hear what you think. All right. So first, I'm going to talk to you about the deficit, macro tax policy stuff. And then I want to talk to you about focus. I will try to keep this short and sweet because I know it's your summertime and you want to get to the pool. So there was a poll out pretty recently about younger voters, because I think, you know, everybody who cares about the upcoming election is really wondering what is going to happen with younger voters who are clearly angry, and rightfully so, clearly upset with the situation in Palestine. Again, rightfully so, as am I, my God. And just hoping that that upset translates into taking action in the voter booth and not sitting home. So please, if that's you, please vote. Please vote. Don't just sit it out. Really, I hope you really make an ethical weighing of the two or three, if you believe that there are really three candidates, and really weigh them. But also that you vote all the way down the ballot, because the statewide offices, your city council, these are positions that make a huge difference, actually direct more of the laws that affect you in your daily life than the federal government. And so while, of course, voting for the president is very important, actually probably 60% of the laws that touch you in the everyday are from local candidates. And too many of us, you know, think we're well informed because we read the New York Times and then know nothing about who represents us on city council or our state legislature. So I am here giving you a plug for your local offices. I hope you will reach out, get on your League of Women Voters website, the Planned Parenthood website, and check out what is going on in your area. Here in North Carolina, the stakes could not be higher. There is a man running for governor in this state who has said that he wants to pass a ban on abortion and he doesn't care how the baby got in the woman's womb. He is a bully, just honestly a heinous person that I hope you will all come out and vote against. All right. But younger voters, in this recent poll, the third most important issue, surprisingly, to young voters is the deficit. I find that fascinating, but honestly, doing some tax research right now, it's very wise and it's smart and it's true that the deficit is going to have the biggest impact on younger voters because we have reached an era in this country where the current generation is not paying off its own debts and is running up the charge card for future generations to pay. And I think if you're a younger voter, you recognize that you are going to have a very big debt to pay off, and it is going to squeeze out the discretionary funding that would go towards educational advancement for you, childcare for your kids so that you can work, and home buyer credits and things like the GI Bill that certainly the generation that ran up the debts got to benefit from. So I do hope you take that anger to the voting booth for sure. And I want to also, hope to help inform you along the way, certainly around like financial and tax policy when you're choosing who to vote for. But an interesting nugget that I just learned is that only about, and I'll need to check my number, but only about 16% of the spending we do in this country is on a national level is discretionary, meaning goes to education, goes to investing in children and youth, home buyer programs, things like that. The enormous majority of our budget goes to servicing the entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the military, which is about 16, 18%, not as big as some people think it is, though, of course, it is a lot of money, and interest on the debt. Now, the interest payment on the debt is a scary number because it's not optional at all. We have to pay that. If we don't make good on that, we cannot continue to borrow, right? So that is spending that is absolutely mandatory. Also, in an environment where interest rates go up, it's also scary, right? Because it is, a large share of the budget now, but with interest rates rising, it could become a much bigger share of the budget. And if we've only got 16% of all the US budget going towards all the social safety net programs and discretionary spending, especially investing in our youth, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, which my kids are, we need to make sure that that deficit does not become greater than our GDP and force that interest rate up even higher and stop other countries wanting to lend to us. There's a lot of issues involved in the deficit. And I had a little debate with my friend the other night. I was telling her about my reading and she was like, oh, deficits don't matter. And I've heard that before, right? And I hadn't read enough at the time to really be able to respond to it. And I was like, yeah, I've heard that, but I need to look into this more because I think it's possible that ours is getting big enough that it does matter. And so I've been reading William Gale's book called Fiscal Therapy, and he is the tax expert I am going to be interviewing next week. And there was a very interesting little piece in this book that I just read that was talking about how deficits actually might be or have been posited to be a conservative strategy for cutting social spending, because it's like that George Lakoff theory. If you don't know George Lakoff, he's a linguist he wrote a book I read called Don't Think of an Elephant, about linguistic tricks that kind of get your brain doing one thing. And Republican political operatives have really successfully used these tricks, like, for example, the phrase tax burden, right? They've associated the word burden with the word tax. Even liberals use this phrase, and it drives me bananas, because if taxes are a burden, then anybody who cuts them is a hero. even though tax cuts might be going to the wealthy and taking money directly out of the pockets of poor people and children, right? Is that heroic? I don't think so. And yet this little linguistic device positions it in your mind as a positive thing. And so we tend to all just jump on and love tax cuts and think they're all great. And we don't have this like association in the other side of like, well, where are we going to take the money from? Who are we going to, are we taking the money from the poor to give to the rich? Is that really such a good thing? So this is a theory posited by George Lakoff. And this budget deficit idea, there's this theory that William Gale has just touched on. He's not saying it exists. He's very neutral, just presenting people have said this could be a strategy. And it's very interesting. If you were to run up the deficit, so, it used to be in US history that we only ran big deficits during wartime. And typically in a good economy, once the economy got going again, we would pay back a lot of the wartime debt, and we would be able to borrow again at good rates. There's this whole interesting history. Hamilton was pro the US borrowing, pro debt, pro being able to borrow so we could do big things. Madison was anti. He thought the debt was a scourge, right? I actually think the answer lies somewhere in the middle, and they're both really right? They can both, depending on the situation, they're both right. The theory goes, if you run up the deficit to such a degree where the interest payments are huge and, we have to cut other spending in order to manage either paying back the deficit or simply servicing the debt through interest payments, you don't ever have to have a conversation about cutting public school funding or healthcare. You don't have to even have that conversation. It just becomes necessary, right? So it's pretty interesting then when you pair that with looking at the history of which presidents, which administrations have run up the peacetime debt. We didn't used to do that, and now we have been. So who was the first president to run up the peacetime debt? Ronald Reagan. Who was the next one? George W. Bush. Any guesses who the next one was? It was Trump. So y'all, if the deficit is important to you, and I can see that to Gen Z, the deficit is the third most important issue based on this recent study, and that's pretty interesting. If you care about education funding, Pell Grants, childcare so that you can work, all the things that younger people need, it's really actually important that we have an administration in office in November that is there to not run up the bills so that future generations are stuck paying them. All right. So I just want you to think about that for a moment. I declare no expertise in this area. I'm reading. I am a student. I am learning along with you right here, right now. But I would love to hear your questions. So definitely @SunlightTax is my Instagram handle. I would love to hear what you have to say about this, what your thoughts are. If you have any questions you want me to ask a tax policy advisor. So let me know. I'd love to hear. And now I want to tell you just briefly, I'm going to keep this short. I'm just going to give you a little episode today on focus. All right. So as you know, I'm writing my book, and really there has been no project in my life that has called upon my powers of focus more than writing a book. For those of you writers out there, oh my God, my hat is off to you. As I am recognizing on this voyage, it's fucking amazing because it is such a big brain activity. And when I'm finished with a writing session, I just get this like high, like, oh my God, I just worked my brain so hard. And I love that, right? It makes me feel very powerful and smart. But distraction, poor sleep are the enemy, right? So I'm really having to be careful about how and where I use my energy because I am on a contract and I need to get this done. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of the tools I've been using. 2 tools I want to talk to you about today. The first tool is managing my, the correspondence I need with people, clients, people in my business, right? So email and Instagram messages are the primary way that I receive, requests and comments and connection with people like you. And connection and service are core to my business. They have to keep going, right? I can't stop all of that. So something that has helped me is templates. So what I've been doing, I've already had this in practice in my business, but I tuned up all my templates right before I started writing. So I've created templates for emails that I tend to get the same question over and over. So if I get the same question 2 or 3 times, it's time for a template. And I'll often take the last email I wrote to somebody about that question and use that as the first draft of the template. And then I just save them in my Gmail, and me, or I'm lucky enough to have an assistant at this point, but you could just go into the Gmail template and pull that out. So that has been super helpful. I've also realized that with templates, the sort of greeting and connection part of the email, you can write fresh for every single person, but that the sort of like, here's the information you requested, here's what I offer, here's my services, here's how it works, here's my scheduling link. That's going to be the same for everybody, no matter what business you're in. And so you really can use templates and just go ahead and write a new sentence. It's like, oh, you're in Minneapolis. I love, my grandma's there. Or, you have your like connecting statement there. So templates have saved me so much time and energy. Big fan. Also on Instagram, I use templates because, as you know, right here on the podcast, I love it when you write me about what your thoughts are on a show. And I love the connection quality of Instagram. And yet I never want to open Instagram. I get sucked in. It's very distracting. So I have Instagram templates for those kind of responses where it's not such a personal message. It's more like, I'm offering this thing and the person says, yes, please, I would like that. I can send them the thing in a more automated way. So I have a lot of that set up, and that saves me a ton of time and energy, right? It saves me focus. And then what I can do is I can save my energy for those times when somebody's reaching out to me about something deeper and more emotional and serious. For example, just this week, I posted one of the footnotes I wrote in my book that is about financial abuse. So in my research, I have long known that financial abuse is out there because I talk about it with my clients, right? In 99% of all cases of abuse, when there's domestic abuse, in 99% of those, there's financial abuse. And it makes perfect sense, right? If abuse is there to control someone, of course you can control someone through violence, but controlling them is done just as effectively through money or access to money. If you don't have any money, you can't move out. You can't do anything. You can't get a car. You can't be mobile. You are very restricted. And so, to be honest, it's a huge motivating force behind why I do the work that I do. I have seen a lot of, mostly women, not exclusively women, but a lot of people in that situation. And I don't want you to give away your power. I see that. I understand how it can kind of sneak up on you and get worse and worse. And I'm here for it. I want to help you get out of it. So I posted that footnote on Instagram this week, and I got a response from someone. I would never reveal anything about what she said here, but I got a response. And as you can imagine, I was like very worried for her. And I immediately sent her a voice memo, and we started chatting back and forth. And, I wanted primarily to make sure she was okay and see if she needed any resources. But that's the kind of thing that templates help me with. Ironically, they help me be more connective, more emotive, more able to connect with people, because I'm not spending all my energy writing out the same email with the same sort of like basic info over and over again. I can spend my time where it really matters, when somebody is reaching out to me with a really deep emotional concern, and I, on a human level, have the energy to connect with them. So I actually think this is a pretty good analogy for the work I do with helping you set up bookkeeping and systems for your money and tax paying, because it's exactly the same thing. It's not that we spend our time bookkeeping and paying quarterly taxes because we love doing that or because we want to spend all this time. It's actually because you don't want to spend all that time. You invest a little upfront time to build systems that will automate this totally mandatory, totally predictable work you know is there so that you have more energy for the good stuff, more energy for your creative endeavors, for your mission, for your business. So templates have been the best. I cannot recommend templates enough. And if you have anything in your business that you can template, I am here to say it's worth it. So go on out and make a template today. That is my one directive to you. My second thing that I have been working on as I write my book is trying to bend time. This sounds a little abstract, but I don't know about you, but my brain is not the same at all times of day, right? If it's after 9 p.m., I'm not doing any work. I don't want to touch work. That will actually give me bad sleep. My brain tends to not let go of whatever I was doing around 9 p.m. So whatever I'm doing around 9 p.m., I want it to be pretty quiet. Just like connecting with my family, reading a great book, being with friends. That's great. So to time bend, what I have realized is that the earlier it is in the morning, the more crisp and strong my brain is. So we're in summer camp season. I don't know about you. If you have kids, summer tends to just like disrupt the schedule because the kids are not going to school. And I am such a creature of habit, and I love habits so much because habits take the thinking out of things. I mean, habits are the template of the mind, right? I just came up with that, but that feels right. But they are. You don't, I just like put on my sneakers every morning as I walk the dog and take my daughter to school. And then I carry on and do my walk, right? Like, because it's a habit, I'm not negotiating. Am I going to exercise this morning? I just do it. The shoes are on. I'm already outside. Like it's all 90% of the effort has already been taken care of. I just have to kind of complete the task, right? So habits are the gem. So it's really hard in summer camp season if you have, if your schedule changes because your kids are not in school, as mine as just happened here in North Carolina. Every week has a different schedule. Sometimes we're away. It's really hard to maintain something like the discipline focus of writing every day. So what I have been trying to do is wake up at the same time every morning early and get in, 30 to 90 minutes of writing before I have to pack a lunch, walk a dog, take a kid somewhere, right? So at least I can know that amount of writing will get done every single day. It also kind of puts the book into my brain again and makes me think about what the next problem is I need to solve for the book, because this book is constant problem solving. And so then when I am walking the dog, when I'm doing my walk, I can kind of marinate on that next step and come back to my work, even if there's a whole bunch of schlepping all around town to various summer camps and play dates. I can be kind of marinating a little bit on the next problem I'm going to face when I sit back down at my desk to write. So I have been really jamming on getting up early, writing for as little as 30 minutes, as long as maybe 90, before I have to actually like rouse the family and do that. That's working really well. Also, my brain at that time in the morning, 30 minutes of writing is like 90 minutes of writing in the afternoon. It is truly better time. I am more focused. The distractions of the day have not yet set in. I just roll out of bed, throw my glasses on, and come down and write. Like, I do not pass go. I do not brush my teeth. I don't say hello to anybody. I just open the laptop and we're in. So this is really working and I love it. My brain in the afternoon, not so much. As the day wears on, I have tasks I have to complete. I have to complete this paperwork. I have to do, respond to this person. These things, they start to scatter my focus. So it tends to be, I'm not going to be as good in the afternoon. And I've decided in summer mode to just fully embrace that. I'm just going to pick up my kids from wherever they are in the afternoon. We'll go to the library. We'll walk the dog. We'll do the things that need doing. But if I've got work time available in the afternoon, I will use it for research, right? Input is a lot easier because it's passive than output. And so I'm using my afternoons now for input time. So I've been reading a lot. This is when I'm reading my tax policy books and articles. And this is really working for me. So I'm really curious. If you're a writer, please tell me what your strategy is for writing. Writing is so damn hard. I'm sure we all do it in a different way, but I would love to hear if you have developed a strategy. I've definitely talked to writers who say they have to touch it every single day because your brain, it's so hard to re-engage. You have to have your brain kind of touching all the elements of the outline at one time, that if you go too far away from it, if you take too many days off, coming back to it is extremely hard. Like the startup energy of getting back in is difficult. So that part of their goal is to write every single day, to never get disconnected from that overview. And I think that's really wise. Sort of what I'm trying for myself. All right. So speaking of writers, I have something for you. I have just way late this year. Oh my God, so behind. I have just finished my next visual guide to your tax deductions. The good news is I've added 3 new ones. So all of the visual guides to tax deductions, I've improved all of them. They have better cost of goods sold info. They've got the updated mileage rate for this year. So all the ones you know and love for artists, designers, makers, creators, online business owners, and performers, those are all updated. Those all still exist. But I made 3 new ones for 3 different groups of people who have been reaching out to me, who I've noticed in my client base. So writers, I have a new visual guide to writers' tax deductions. I wanted to focus a little bit on writing today. And so writers, I just want you to know I see you and I'm becoming you. So definitely check out the writer's guide. Also, doulas and midwives. I have made a guide specifically for you. It's got a lot about, buying medical supplies, your time, things like that. So doulas and midwives, I have a guide for you. And also wellness practitioners. So this includes fitness instructors, it includes therapists, it includes massage therapists, people who do body work or more sort of spiritually oriented wellness work. So check out the new wellness practitioner visual guide to tax deductions, writer's guide to tax deductions, and midwife and doula guide to tax deductions. And any of the originals, artists, designers, makers, creators, online business owners, and performers, I've got you updated as well. All of those guides you can get at the same link, sunlighttax.com/deductions guide. And when you go and click the one that fits you, you'll get a new URL that goes specifically to that one. So if you wanted to share the writer's guide, for example, with all your writer friends, you could go to sunlighttax.com/writer's guide. I believe it's writer's guide. God, I should have checked that. Anyway, I'll put the links in the show notes for you today, but I really hope you go download those now, print them out, keep them by your books, and enjoy. Thanks for being with me today. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.